हेलो। हाँ हाँ, हो गया मेरा। ओके, थैंक यू।
Sound on, sir. Sir, you are in live. Good to go.
Okay.
ओके।
A warm good evening to dear friends, colleagues, seniors, juniors. A warm welcome from New Tima Hospital at Meerut, and we are here to discuss something about interesting about renal transplant, which we are doing for last 10 years now. Me, Dr. Sandeep Garg, along with Dr. Shalin Sharma and Dr. Sharat Chand Garg, are here to discuss something very interesting and very basic about renal transplant. What all we should know, what all internist, physician, surgeon, every doctor one should know about renal transplant. We'll be discussing in next half an hour or so. Well, to keep ball rolling, myself, Dr. Sandeep Garg, and I'll be starting first, followed by Dr. Shalin Sharma, who will be telling you something about transplant surgery, and followed by Dr. Shirachan Garg, who will be talking about lab donor nephrectomy. I will like to share my slide first. Can you see the slides?
Yes.
Well, good evening, friends. As I have told you that we'll be discussing three topics in a very basic manner regarding renal transplant. Myself, Dr. Sandeep Garg, I am a nephrologist, dialysis expert, renal transplant physician, working in New Tima Hospital for last 3 years now. And we have been working in Meerut for last 15 years. And it was my dream to start renal transplant program in Meerut. And we have been doing it for last 10 years now. To celebrate 10 years of renal transplant from New Tima Hospital team, we are here to discuss something very basic. Well, these are my institution where I worked. I started my MBBS in 1989 from Motilal Nehru Medical College, Allahabad. Then I did my MD from Al Medical College, Meerut, followed by TM from SMS Jaipur, and then final nephrology from SGP JMS Lucknow. This is the hospital we are working right now. And to introduce the topic, well, why renal transplant is necessary? I'll be discussing these lines only. What is tissue human organ transplantation act 1994? Very brief about all these things. What is NOTO? What is a transplant team? What is authorization committee? What is a legal donor? What is a transplant eligibility for a patient? What is a preemptive transplant? What is a swab transplant? What is donor and recipient survival in renal transplant population? What is the cost of transplant? Because very important issue regarding transplant, because if it is made free, if the transplant is made free, definitely we have to do daily transplant in our center only, and the cost of maintenance immunosuppression is also very necessary. Now, to begin right from the academic point of view, if you see this slide, it's not a very busy slide, but what it tells you that all patients, if they start on dialysis, by the end of an year, around 50% patient they are continued on dialysis. But if we talk of patients who are more than 65 years of age, they also come down, their number come down. And if we talk of a patient who are less than 65 years, again that their number come down. So basically mortality is quite high if the patient chooses for maintenance hemodialysis program as compared to renal transplant. Well, these are the more common causes by which the patient comes to death in ESRD population. The maximum number of deaths are mainly because of cardiac complication, followed by sepsis, and there are many other causes like septicemia, infection, malignancy, hyperkalemia, withdrawal from dialysis because of financial issues, and there are many more causes by which the patient of dialysis goes off. Now, this is a very beautiful slide which tells you that after 5 years, if you diagnose a patient as a case of CKD5, then after 5 years, the patient chooses for dialysis, hardly 40% patient survives. But if they choose for transplant, around 85% of patients survives. It's a good number of patients survive if they opt for renal transplant.
बढ़िया चल रहा है सर.
Now, if we talk of kidney transplant survival, it's very beautiful number you can see. More than 90%, that is around 95% patients survive after 1 year of renal transplant. Around 90% of patients survive till 5 years of transplant, and around 60% of patients survive 50% of 15 years of down the line. So it's very interesting data. That means that it's almost similar to the normal population, that we do survive to that much long, that 60% at 15 years of post-transplant period. Well, if we talk of disease donor transplantation, definitely we have little bit lesser survival as compared to living donor transplant, and we are doing only living donor transplant program right now. Now, a brief about Transplantation of Human Organ Act 1994. It was formulated in 1994 by Lok Sabha and came into existence. There are few definitions, like donor means a person not less than 18 years of age who voluntarily authorized to remove of his organ for therapeutic purpose. Hospital is a nursing home, clinic, or medical center which is authorized by the DOTO, SOTO, and ROTO to do transplant activities. Near relative means spouse, son, daughter, father, mother, brother, and sister. A registered medical practitioner, a transplant surgeon could be a doctor who has studied MBBS followed by MS or MCH with 3-year mandatory training in renal transplant activity. Similarly, a renal transplant physician is an individual who does his MBBS followed by MD medicine or MD pediatrics with 3 years, or DM in nephrology or DNB in nephrology with 3-year training of renal transplant activities. These individuals are authorized to do renal transplant program activities in their hospital. A non-transplant program team include neurologist, neurosurgeon, medical superintendent, hospital staff, eye donation calls, but this is basically required for the whole of the transplant activities like eye transplant, cardiac transplant, liver transplant, other things also. Well, there are good number of departments which are required for a transplant activity to be done in a hospital. We require from neurology, microbiology, mycology, pathology, virology. So most of the departments are required for a transplant activity to be done in a hospital setting. Now there are authorities like NOTO, that is National Organ and Tissue Transplantation Organization, ROTO and SOTO. NOTO is at national level, ROTO is at regional level, and SOTO is at state level. We should know all these before we talk of renal transplant. Well, NOTO is a national level organization set up under Directorate of DGHS, Ministry of Family and Welfare, Government of India, and it maintains a central registry of all the transplant activity occurs in India, and all the centers which do transplant are to be registered under NOTO, and then only transplant activity can be done. And as soon as we do any transplant activity like kidney or any other organ, we have to inform the NOTO on the 7th of every month. And it basically has ROTO and SOTO at the state level. Now, there are 3 options for a transplant donor. Either it could be live could be related or unrelated. It could be paired donation or swab transplantation, or it could be disease donor transplantation. Well, coming to the renal living donor, living donor provides an excellent health of a donor kidney because it's a planned surgery, and we can plan the surgery and we harvest a good, excellent, healthy organ from the live donor. It has an improved long-term survival as compared to disease donor activities. It has the ability to receive transplant in a timely manner. Live donor are usually family member or a friend. Medical assessment are conducted in a broad manner. We have a lot of time to do medical assessment of the donor before we take him for transplant, and the donor is always healthy and compatible with the recipient. Now, if we talk of paired exchange is almost like a live donor program. Around 30% of potential kidney donors are suitable, but they are not compatible to the intended recipient, either because of blood group, which is incompatible, or immunologically incompatible. And these donor obligate recipients are registered for swab transplant, high-risk transplant, or ABO incompatible transplant. We'll be discussing all these terminology in later part of our talk. Well, disease donor are basically kidney or other organ can be harvested from a brain dead donor after a proper consent and consent from the authorization committee. We usually get a less of time, say around 24 hours of time is given to the transplant team, and another team which is able to harvest the organ, and then these harvested organs are supplied to the various centers where transplant activity can be done with these organs. Now, this is a slide which tells you how the paired kidney donation occurs. This is pair 1, in which the donor is there and the recipient is there. This is pair 2 with donor 2, donor recipient 2. But somehow, because of either ABO incompatibility or HLA incompatibility, the donor and recipient cannot give organ to their spouse or living member. Then they crisscross their donor and recipient simultaneously, and this type of transplantation activity is known as paired donation or swap transplant. Well, this was the first swap transplant we did. After we did this, we have done 2 more, and so six total transplant with swap activity we have done. This is Saira, who has donated to his, who was intended to donate his husband Muhammad Aslam, but he was HLA incompatible, so he donated to Lal Kiran, and his Lal Kiran's wife Saroj Devi donated to Muhammad Aslam. Now, these are the basic tests which are being done in a patient who intends to go for a donor transplant. The ABO blood group, complete blood count, platelet, fasting sugar, all HLA activity, all multi-scanning. Every damn test which you think of are being done. Few special tests like in Corona we are doing right now. We are doing COVID test, RT-PCR of the patient, recipient, donor, donor's family, and recipient family. All at least 5 to 6 RT-PCR we are doing before we are doing transplant in COVID era. We have done around 3 transplant till date. We have started transplant activity last month only, and we have done 3 right till now in COVID era. In Nitimo Hospital, we have done up to 42 transplant in last 3 years, and we are very more to done in next years and months to come. In male, we also evaluate for the malignancy. This is an article which we published around 3-4 years back, which talks about donating life to a patient who requires kidney. Now, coming to the patient and family informed, patient and family has to be informed about the transplant process, cost incurred, center options, risk and benefit, medication regime, lifestyle adjustment, effect of transplantation on existing medical condition, and short-term and long-term outcome. Because short-term and long-term outcome are not always pink. They could be something which can go wrong also during renal transplant, because it's a difficult surgery, and although the outcomes are very good, but you never know which patient is not doing good. A transplant team include a transplant surgeons, at least 2 to 3 number, transplant physician, critical care specialist, transplant anesthesia team is required, at least 2 in number, transplant OT technicians, kidney transplant unit nurse, at least 3 to 4, and transplant coordinator, again a very important member of the transplant team. Now, if we talk of ESRD population, it's increasing daily, day-to-day basis. We are getting more and more patients of CKD5, and it's basically because of change in lifestyle, which we have because of more and more epidemiological, like CGN, CIN, they are working more. And similarly, the patient from diabetes who are living more than 5 to 6 years, 7 years, 10 years, they come to us for kidney transplant activity. So number of ESRD population is definitely increasing. There must be very physicians and surgeons in the webinar who are attending those. They must be seeing many more patients in their real practice. Now, the options of a patient who is CKD5 and symptomatic, he either could opt for a dialysis, it could be hemodialysis or peritoneal dialysis, which could be done at his home. Kidney transplant, it could be cadaveric or light donor. And if unfortunately he doesn't do anything, the test is inevitable. This is the first dialysis unit. You can see this is the first dialysis unit which came in existence. It was a historical fact. And then talking about the financial burden, very interesting slide. What I want to highlight is that, let's see, this is the brown one is the transplant cost. This pink one is the PD cost, and this is hemodialysis cost. So what we can see that over the years, the cost of transplant is less as compared to all other modality of renal replacement therapy. So the transplant is always cheap. What our notion is that it's the costliest option. It's not that transplant is definitely costly at the beginning, but after we go for maintenance immunosuppression, the cost of transplant in a year is almost equal to at least 2 years of that cost of hemodialysis. Now, this is the cumulative saving which we are which we achieve if you go for transplant as compared to dialysis. Survival we have already seen, it's already almost 85% at 5 years as compared to 40 years in dialysis. This was the first transplant which was done in 1954, and this was the first transplant we did in April 2010. Now, coming to the indication for kidney transplantation, the chief cause of ESRD in children are obstructive uropathy. We have just transplanted a child around a week back who was a patient of solitary kidney with posterior wall. The wall was fulgurated, patient was working well. There was no evidence of neurogenic bladder. We gradually he went to end-stage renal disease, and he was transplanted by our team around a week back. I will be sharing his photo also. The causes are obstructive uropathy, hypoplastic or dysplastic kidneys, reflex nephropathy, focal segmental glomerulosclerosis, polycystic kidney disease. Usually in young, it is autosomal recessive or autosomal dominant varieties. In the children also there, but usually it's a adult business. The chief cause among adults include diabetic nephropathy, which is a major chunk, followed by hypertensive nephropathy, and the glomerulonephritis and other causes for renal transplant. And this was a patient I was talking of. This is a 9-year-old child. When he came to us, he was 4-year-old, and after 6 years of follow-up, now he required transplant, and he was transplanted on probably 6 or 7 days back. Now, coming to the contraindication of kidney transplant, the absolute contraindication for kidney transplant are active infection. If the patient is harboring active infection, especially the patient like ADPKD who are harboring cyst infection, they cannot be taken up for transplant. It's a elective surgery and had to be planned with very ethical manner. Active malignancy is also probably because RCC. Even RCC patient can be taken up for transplant, but we have to at least wait for 5 years before they are cancer free, and then we can take up for transplant. Active drug use like alcoholism, psychosis, contraindication, medical non-compliance, again a major cause for non-transplanting a patient. BMI of more than 40 may not mean that makes transplantation technically impossible. Again, a contraindication for kidney transplant. Well, we've talked of contraindication for transplant, the severe pulmonary hypertension, severe cardiopulmonary disease, life cirrhosis and portal hypertension, AIDS. But as far as severe cardiopulmonary disease is concerned, definitely if the patient is having EF of say 20 or 30, we cannot take him for transplant. But if the patient is having say EF of 30, 40 and he's angiography is normal, definitely he can be taken up for transplant, and his EF recovers to his normal EF say after 3 to 4 months of transplant. And this EF which was there earlier, which was low, is basically because of cardiomyopathy, because of uremia, and not because of coronary cause. Similarly, in the patient of liver cirrhosis, transplant is contraindicated, but can be done if you are doing simultaneously liver and kidney transplant. Now, coming with for the relative contraindication for kidney transplant, there are significant cardiac disease, significant pulmonary disease, significant GI disease, severe vascular disease like coronary, cerebral, peripheral, and renal disease with significant potential for recurrence in the graft. And usually diseases like FSGS, Bifid-Buffon, they have chances of 20 to 30%. And we do have a patient who was biopsy-proven FSGS. After explaining that all the risks, we did transplant him, and his FSGS recovered after 3.5 years of transplant, and we lost the graft at around 4.5 years of his transplant. Now, contraindication for kidney transplant again required a potential of non-compliance, especially in children. If you are thinking that patient can be non-compliant, definitely transplant couldn't be done. BMI for more than 35, age greater than 90, 70 years, We have done transplant of 65 years of individual, psychosocial or financial issues, and history of cancer. Now coming to the interesting term known as preemptive renal transplant, it is defined as a transplantation before the initiation of dialysis or hemodialysis or dialysis. It's basically done or advised in an individual who is working, who is who's a doctor or a lawyer or a businessman who doesn't want to have a poor quality of life because of end-stage disease. So these patients are usually advised transplantation as soon as their creatinine goes say around 4 or 5 or GFR of say 30, and these can be transplanted, and just in a sheer time of 1 month they're back to work. Now established as an optimal treatment for adults with ESRD, but the benefit of preemptive renal transplantation in children are less clear, because until unless these children they have a fear of dialysis, they don't follow the transplant regime properly. This has been seen in various long-term trials. So they have to feel that they were ESRD and they were on dialysis, and if they are not compliant with the drugs, they can again be on dialysis. So in children, the preemptive transplant is not suggested, but for getting catch-up growth, definitely it can be done. Adults have longer survival and improved quality of life, and they should be preemptive transplant. Well, who qualifies? A patient who has progressive irreversible renal disease, no active malignancy or infection, absence of systemic disease, life expectancy greater than 5 years, effective family or social support, willingness to comply, treatment and follow-up requirement. There are few contraindications we have discussed. Now coming to the cost of transplant, hospital package at our unit is around 3.2 lakhs, which requires cost of a transplant surgeon, serial number, transplant physician, instruments, cameras, anesthesia team, K2, deluxe rooms, and OT charges. Medicine charges around 1.25 lakhs, induction immunosuppression around 1 lakh, investigation around 1.2 lakh, and maintenance immunosuppression of hardly 7,000 to 8,000 per month. Well, this was the transplant expenses, around 5.8 lakhs, 5.8 thousand, around 5 to 6 years back. And these are the patients we have transplanted in the last 10 years. We have already completed around 142 patients day for yesterday. The last transplant was on Thursday. And this is a team from Newtima. And thank you very much. Now I will ask Dr. Shalin Sharma, if he is here, to discuss something about renal transplant activity in Newtima Hospital. We are doing this activity for last 3 years now, and more than 40 transplant to our credit. Shalin Sharma, are you there?
Yes, I'm there. I'm having some connectivity problem. I'll ask Dr. Sharath to go ahead with his presentation.
Dr. Sharath, please, or do not affect me. Lab do not affect me.
Is my presentation seen?
No.
No.
Is there any questions? Definitely they will be answered. We like our listeners to put their question answers in the chat box, and we'll be seeing those and we'll be answering those after this talk. Now it's visible, Sharath.
Okay, fine. A very good evening to all. After an interesting and a crispy presentation by Dr. Sandeep Garg, I'm myself, Dr. Sharath Chand Garg. Am I audible?
Yes.
I'm Dr. Sharath Chand Garg. I'm a urologist and a transplant surgeon at Newtima. Today, I will discuss something about the aspects of the laparoscopy in donor nephrectomy in COVID times. All of you are aware about the laparoscopic donor nephrectomy, but since all of you know that since January 2020, we are facing a big problem about this corona. So everything is stopped for a while, and then we started doing our surgeries. then we have to take some care or precautions about the surgery while doing donor nephrectomy. I will discuss some of the points which we should take care. First thing is important, how does this COVID-19 is spread? Basically, three mechanisms in the surgical aspects have been described for till date for spread of the disease. First is the respiratory droplet produced when an infected person coughs, sneezes, or talks in the form of droplets. These surgical masks and N95 respirators reduces the wearer's exposure to the airborne particles. Second method is when viral particles are transferred to the other person by touching or a contaminated surface. Third is the aerosolization of the viral particles. But till date, there is no definitive data or research which is saying about that the transmission of the virus of COVID is via surgical smoke, as other viruses are known to transmit through the surgical smoke, but not the COVID-19. But still, studies are going on, and we have to look for the how it transmits in the smoke or not. So we should think every patient to be positive and deal it like this only. So filtration is a very effective means of protection from the release of the virus during minimally invasive surgeries or laparoscopy or endoscopy. So commonly used N95 respirator, which are designed to filter the particles of more than 0.3 microns. Efficacy is 95%. Second highest efficacy is of HEPA filters, which we are commonly using at our center in Nitima Hospital, which it is 99.97% efficient to remove the particles which are greater than size of 0.3 microns. The best filter for this is ULPA filter, ultra low particulate filter, which is having a minimum 99.99% efficacy to remove the particle which are greater than the 0.12 micron in diameter. So first important thing which we should look for surgery, any type of surgery, either is open kidney transplant or laparoscopic donor nephrectomy, we should have a dedicated COVID-19 OR. These operating rooms which are presumed or which are having patients of presumed, suspected or confirmed COVID-19 positive patient should be appropriately filtered and ventilated. If possible, should be different than room used for other emergency surgical procedures. There should be high exchange rate of the flows. There should be a planning to reduce the maximum traffic flow in the theater to minimize the distance between the patient and the theater things. There should be the minimal equipments in the room like pagers, cell phones, laptop, etc. They should not be allowed in the theater. In regards to the anesthesia management or airway management precautions in patients, we should start the procedure of intubation. If needed and possible, intubation and extubation should take place within a negative pressure room. As all of you know that commonly our theaters are positive pressure rooms, so that outside aerosols doesn't enter in the theater. But in case of COVID-19, ideal theater should be negative pressure room. If we don't have a negative pressure room, then intubation or extubation procedure should be done in a separate room, and after the intubation after intubation, patient should be shifted to the main OR or theater. And one thing important is we have to wait for some time after the intubation of the patient or extubation of the patient before shifting him to theater or shifting out of the theater. Only those considered essential staff, like Dr. Sandeep told about the technicians, assistants, all, there should be limited number of the patient, OT technician or staff in the theater. And until unless there is an emergency, there should be no exchange into the room staff. There should be no team break or nursing break. And every pre-operative hurdle should be settled down before entering into the theater, like the procedure plan, what we are planning to do, how do we operate, what instrument do we have required, what is the duration of surgery. These things all should be taken care of before entering to the theater. What blood is required, what suture is required, and how is the method of disposition of the thing. These all things these should be settled down before entering into the theater. So there should be minimum hassle into the theater. Especially in the laparoscopy, as we are doing routinely our donor nephrectomy by laparoscopic method, which is very good for a donor because there should be very minimum scars, less pain, patient is discharged early and retains activity very early. That's why nowadays laparoscopic donor nephrectomy is the choice for the donor nephrectomy. from last 3-4 years, we are routinely doing our laparoscopic nephrectomy donor nephrectomy by the laparoscopy, right side and left side both. So just to brief about the laparoscopy, how to reduce the risk of exposure of the COVID or leakage of gases. These 3 points I would like to discuss about the laparoscopy: small and secure incision ports. Second is the CO2 insufflation and the pneumoperitoneum filtration and the evacuation. I will discuss each and a point in brief. First and foremost thing important in any kind of surgery or theater, which is either kidney transplant or donor nephrectomy, practice in operating room should be on an established or tested known non-COVID patient, because till date this crisis is going on and we don't know much about this disease and this virus, how it will progress or further damage the society. So try to get as possible to get a known COVID patient in the theater. The important thing while doing laparoscopy is the port placement. So to prevent the COVID infection, incision of the port should be as small as possible to allow the passage of ports, but not allow to the leakage of gas around the ports. To secure the trocars, we used to take these 3 steps. Incision should be small, and it should be the same as size of port. We usually use Verey's needle technique to insert the first port rather than open, because open there is a large incision which causes more leakage of the gas. So needle technique is better. Other methods are threading the port with the trocar. And one important thing is we should keep our pressure in laparoscopy with a minimum. So to just prevent the leakage of gas, because every time you use a cautery and produce a thermal energy around the artery or vein, there is a aerosol production in the abdomen. So to remove these aerosol, we have to use suction and leakage of the gas. That again will enhance the increase COVID exposure to the staff, surgeon, and everybody in the theater. So we should use the minimum thermal energy around inside the abdomen, especially in the artery and vein. As you can see in the pictures, we have dissected. This is our right side donor nephrectomy. This is a right renal artery, renal vein. This is a gonadal vein, right side. We have done a minimum use of thermal energy around the artery and vein. Small blood oozing is there, that doesn't matter. But to make this hemostasis, we have to use thermal energy, which can cause again the arterial spasm and increase production of the aerosols. Which for removing that, we have to use suction and removal of the evacuation of the air. This picture is showing left side donor nephrectomy with the right renal artery, and this is the right renal vein. So the lesson is just we have to keep our energy setting the minimum and avoid minimal additional use of carbon dioxide. As I described you earlier about the port placement, this is a port placement for the right side of the donor nephrectomy. As you can see that I have just made an incision quite sufficient to enter the port. There is hardly any space to leakage of the gas. And as you can see in this picture that we have, this is the one port which is connected with the CO2 insufflation, and another port which is used for suction or assistance of the port. We have connected on a tube which is going inside to the suction bottle, which is again connected with a HEPA filter, so that the leakage of COVID is least and minimum in the theater. All pneumoperitoneum should be evacuated via filtration system before closure, trocar removal, or specimen extraction. Post-operative, you can see that this is a post-operative X-ray of a patient donor. Minimal amount of the air is seen in the diaphragm, so it should not be happen. One important measure during laparoscopy is post-surgery is the cleaning of the surgical equipment. Surgical equipment used during procedures with COVID-19 positive or person under investigation, these should be, if at all we have suspected that patient is having COVID infection, we should clean our instruments separately from the other surgical instruments. What is the need for special testing for the COVID-19? If it is readily available and practical, surgical patients should be tested pre-operatively for COVID-19, just to rule out the asymptomatic carriers. Patient is harboring the COVID-19, but not having symptoms. Buckingham Theatre, then there's chances of risk of infection, cross-infection to the other staff and the doctor. Second thing, the centers where PPE is not easily available. In those cases, COVID-19 investigation should be done by doing antigen, antibody, and HRCT, so that once you are confirmed that the patient or donor is absolutely negative for the COVID-19, we can skip the PPE, use of PPE if patient is COVID-19. Second thing important while doing tests are the time frame what we have to look for. If we have done tested today and patient goes exposed on the next day and report come after 3 or 5 days, that is very important. We have to take care that patient should be tested in a time frame so that there is no false negative patients of the test. These are some measures in theater we are using for laparoscopic procedures. We have full cover torso from neck to knee, arm, wrist. This is a PPE kit covering the full body from toes to head. There's a mask with respirators, which is more than 99%, 95% efficient to reduce the COVID load. Important thing while wearing a mask is just to fit flexible band to the nose bridge, fit snugly to the face and the below chin. And Google or face shield, it should cover our eyes, nose, and up to the chin. So important thing is surgical patient should be tested preoperatively. Intubation, extubation should be done outside in a negative pressure room. The use of the electrosurgical devices to reduce the aerosols in the abdomen. Use of all kind of open transplant, laparoscopic donor nephrectomy, and other procedures. There should be a proper filtration system in the theater. We are using HEPA filter in our theater, and smoke evacuation devices should be used while doing suction or filtration system. And now a few words about the surgical N95 mask. What are the basic recommendations for the N95 mask? Ideally, CDC has recommended these N95 masks as a one-time use. Due to the shortage, CDC has approved extended use of these masks, but you can use it in between patients and for up to the 8 hours only. Reuse and decontamination strategies are not officially endorsed, but are allowed with cautions. So expired N95 meeting certain criteria are okay to use. These kind of masks, which you can see with a filter, typically used in the construction sites, building materials. It protects the wearer, but not the others. So be careful. These kind of N95 masks should not be worn by a healthcare personnel or healthcare setting, because you can prevent yourself, but you are infecting others if you are got infected. So as per the CDC, okay to reuse N95 masks are with the masks which are not exposed to the aerosolizing procedures, which are not extended contacted with the COVID patients, which are stored properly within a breathable container and allowed to fully dry, which are not soiled with the bodily fluids. Fitting of this mask is still intact. And if you are wearing a face shield over the surgical mask. What is the mask rotation strategy as advised by the CDC? If you obtain multiple N95s, allow each to dry for at least 72 hours before redonning. Avoid touching the inside or outside of the mask when donning and doffing is done. So what is the life of an N95 with this strategy? CDC recommends following manufacturer, either the follow manufacturer guidelines, or 5 days is the maximum. So in brief, conclusion is always follow diligent donning and doffing procedures. Ideal protocol is to use each mask only once, maximum 5 days. Use cautions when implementing decontamination, because there is a limited data about the COVID-19. And many variables are difficult to control, like sweat, saliva, etc., which can impact the efficacy of decontamination. This is all about the precautions you should take while doing any surgery. So, thank you. Now over to Dr. Shaleen Sharma. I will invite Dr. Shaleen to tell something about the kidney transplantation in the COVID era. Sir, over to you, Dr. Shaleen.
I'll share my screen now.
Yeah, sure. Dr. Sharaf, please unshare your screen.
Okay, sir. Okay. ठीक है सर?
Yeah, fine.
Okay.
Okay. Can you see my screen now?
No,
Am I audible? And can you see?
you are
No.
audible, but screen is not there. It's been a long journey, in almost 10 years. We have been doing transplant in Meerut. Dr. Shaleen and we were there at SMS Jaipur also. I did my DM from there, and Dr. Shaleen did his MCH. Dr. Shaleen, please start your deliberation.
Hello, can you see my presentation?
No,
Here.
no, we can't see.
Yes.
Sir?
Actually, I'm trying, but this is not.
Press Alt and S, then you will share the screen.
Alt and S, okay.
Alt and S, then you will have an option of share the screen.
Screen sharing failed. Please try again. Error code 105035.
Your slides are those slides. Those you sent to me are those are the slides.
I think if you have the same presentation, I can share it.
Yes, you have my presentation?
Is this the same which you have sent me yesterday?
No, there were some corrections after this.
Okay, fine. Then I don't have. You can send either me or Dr. Sandeep. We will share it.
Okay, send me your email ID.
But the problem is, then we will share. Then you have to speak. How is it possible?
No, I'll be able to see. You can say next. We'll change this slides. Just wait. I'll try. I'll try again. Error code 1.
Dr. Shaleen, should I start sharing? I have few presentation of yours.
I think we'll start with that only.
Is it fine? Can you see
Yeah,
this?
this is okay. This will be without any corrections. Yes, on the screen. This will be without the photographs, and but I think we'll go with this only since I'm not able to share.
Okay, fine. Start.
Okay, so carrying on the discussion further, in which Dr. Sandeep has covered the medical and the pre-transplant workup, and Dr. Sharad has covered the laparoscopic donor nephrectomy. Now here I'll be going ahead with the the surgical aspects and the precautions which we are aspects of. Next slide, please. Dr. Sandeep, next slide, please.
Next is already there.
Okay. Okay. Chronic kidney disease is a major health concern. Go back, please.
This is the first slide.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So chronic kidney disease is a major health concern in our country, and the number of patients of chronic kidney disease are increasing every year. And we have 1 lakh patients added to this number of chronic kidney patients in our country, and 1 lakh patients start with dialysis or transplant every year. So the ESRD patients, they require dialysis or transplant to sustain their life, and transplant offers the closest thing to a normal life, and it gives the best quality of life to a patient. However, it also has some drawbacks, like there is a dependence on drugs, and some of these drugs can
Well, I think we have lost Dr. Shaleen. Dr. Sharad, can you continue
Oh, sir,
with
I'm
this?
here. I'm here.
Dr. Shaleen, Sharad, please continue with this slide. Kidney transplantation surgery.
Okay, fine. So in kidney transplantation, the surgery, I just give you a brief about the transplantation surgery. Usually we give a small Gibson incision in the right iliac fossa for the right iliac kidney transplant with after dissection of the retroperitoneal space to expose the iliac vessel and the bladder and the ureter. Sometimes there is given a midline incision in case of previous transplant, or we have to do a pediatric transplant. So anastomosis is done with the mainly external iliac or internal iliac artery, and the vein is always external iliac vein as dissected. So kidney transplantation donor procedure, kidneys are recovered from either the living donor or the deceased donor cadaver brain dead patients. Living donor offer optimal preparation of both recipient and donors. Total ischemia time can be less than an hour. Less the warm ischemia time, better is the outcome. High output is established immediately after the unclamping the vessels. In disease donor transplantation, allocation is done based on the waiting list for the kidney transplant. We are just planning in the process to start the disease donor transplant. This is work is still going on. On in bench side, kidney side, ureteronephrostomy is done. Basically, the graft kidney which has been taken from the donor Renal artery is anastomosed with the internal iliac artery or the external iliac artery. Veins is anastomosed with the external iliac vein. And the ureter is attached on the dome of the bladder of the native patient. This anastomosis is done with a high Lesch-Greger extravesical approach, and degestant is kept. In case of the ureter is short or there is some problem in the bladder, then the ureterotomy is done with the native ureter of the recipient. Next, please.
This is all I had.
Oh, it's very less. I think communication is lost with Dr. Shaleen, I think.
Renal artery is anastomosed to the internal.
Yes. And sometimes there is a multiple artery donor having one or two or three single artery accessory artery. In that case, either we have to do a pantaloon anastomosis of the both arteries, or if they are far apart or length discrepancy is there, diameter discrepancy is there, then main renal artery is anastomosed with the external iliac artery, and the lower polar or superior polar artery is anastomosed with the inferior epigastric. So every time we are preserving the inferior epigastric artery in case there is a surprise or identification of accessory artery, then we can anastomose it with the epigastric artery. So on renal transplantation, there are some complications in the intraoperatively or postoperatively which can occur. First and foremost is a delayed graft function. Sometimes they, because of increased warm ischemia time, or there's some problem in the harvesting of kidney, there's an arterial spasm. In that case, there is a delayed graft function. Means kidneys start producing urine after some time, but it will start in a few hours. It is called delayed graft function. Sometime on table, if due to some coagulopathies of the patient or some mishappening in traumatic injury of the intima, there is vascular thrombosis, or intraoperatively some tight suture, some systemic disease causes stenosis of the artery. In that case, graft function is not good. There is a renal failure or increase in the creatinine first initial output. Sometimes there is a ureteral obstruction at the point of anastomosis with the bladder. It's because of either a clot or edema or some external compression by the lymphocyte, which we are facing in the post-operative period. So it's very crucial to have a first 5 to 7 days post-operatively to deal with all the complications of the recipient. There can be urinary leakage because of loosening of the suture at the ureteronephrostomy site, or because of ureteral necrosis or ischemia of the blood supply. Ureter can cause the leakage of the urine. Sometimes there is a accessory artery on the lower pole, which we have missed during dissection and the donor nephrectomy, that can cause to the hamper of blood supply to the lower pole and ureter also. In that case also there is leakage of the urine, ureteral necrosis occurs. Very late, after 2 or 3 weeks, there is a lymphocele formation occur, which is usually presents with the pain and swelling in the lower abdomen with rising creatinine. In that case, urine flow is compressing the ureter, which is causing back pressure. So these lymphocele are managed surgically with the deroofing and different procedures. There are some common infections in the transplant kidney, which are most commonly it is a cytomegalovirus infection, BK polyomavirus, which usually causes ureteral stenosis or stricture. And because patient is on immunosuppression, there is more chances of developing the fungal infection, which is very rare. Different kind of fungal infection are documented in the literature and treated accordingly with the antifungal. And the incidence of rejection in the kidney is 10 to 25%. It is a different kind of rejection. It is cell-mediated rejection or antibody-mediated rejection, which is managed with the changing the dose of immunosuppressions. Next. I think
no, probably this, probably this is all we have for the presentation. Now we have not many questions. We are glad to see that there are more than 100 participants were there. And this is the first question from Dr. Deepak Sharma. He says, good concept.
Could you see the questions?
Yeah, he says good concept. Then there's Dr. Vara Prasad Pillai. He states, good luck to our team of renal transplant at New Edema.
Hi, Bharat.
Then there is Mr. Surup. Dr. Surup is there. He says, what is the safe consumption of alcohol in ml per week to avoid renal ailments up to what age? So I request Dr. Shaleen to please take up this question. What is the safe alcohol limit what the patient can have? Dr. Shaleen, please.
I don't think that alcohol has any direct impact on the kidneys. And as far as the safety limit would go, I think it would be as far as the liver function is concerned. So you can mention that how much alcohol can we take every day, or is
Per week. Per week is asking. Next question is by Dr. Arjun Shekhawat.
I think it would be.
He
Basically, it
congratulates.
has been written in the literature that around 50 ml of alcohol, 42% alcohol per day is a cardioprotective. The direct side effect of alcohol on a renal profile is not documented. Basically, alcohol is a change in the liver metabolism and the triglycerides and HDL level. That indirectly may cause harm to the renal, but as such, alcohol is not having a direct effect on the kidneys. So 50 ml of 42% alcohol daily for a male is a protective for a cardioprotective as per literature, sir.
But there's a myth that beer causes expulsion of the ureteric stones.
No, sir,
So
that is more dangerous. That is more dangerous because beer is causing beer potomania, which is causing extreme diuresis to propulsion of the stone, but side by side it causes hyponatremia also. So it's not advisable to have a beer in a stone case patients.
Dr. Arnita Rana has logged in. Dr. Rana says, good evening. To combat organ shortage, can we utilize HCV person as a kidney donor? Dr. Rana, you must be knowing that we are using HCV positive donor also.
Yes.
But there's a this thing. One should treat these patients at least for 3 months with the latest available drugs known as DAA inhibitors. And once they have their HCV-RN negative, we have to wait again for next 3 months. And once they are proven to be SVR, that is sustained viral remission, then these patients can be taken up for renal transplant. And second, these HCV positive donors can be taken up even for the HCV positive recipients also. But again, they have to be treated first for at least 3 months, and then they have to have sustained viral remission for 3 months, and then these can be taken up for donation. But a good question, Dr. Rana. Then there's a question from Dr. Amit Upadhyay, a neurologist and New Demo Hospital. He says, excellent job done by a very, very dynamic team. Many more hundreds of transplant expected. Thanks, Dr. Amit Upadhyay. Now, Mr. Manish Gori is there. He says, want to know more about renal transplant? Mr. Gori, you can email us or you can WhatsApp up on our number if you know more. Mr. Ravi Kumar Gupta says, okay, it's fine. And Mr. Jyoti Samarth is there. He says,
he's my boss. I want to answer him.
Dr. Sharath, great. You are still doing retro donors and trans sometimes.
Hello, Dr. Amlan. Boss, I'm still doing retro nephrectomies, but not in donor nephrectomies. Usually nowadays, I'm doing the transperitoneal donor nephrectomy, right side and left side both. But retro is a little bit difficult for me in this setup because there is a little bit apprehension about the OT setup I'm not getting. So I'm now well versed with the doing transperitoneal donor nephrectomy. Okay, boss. Thank you.
Dr. Mohammad Sharik says, best of luck to our team. Dr. Himanshu Raniwal is there. He also says, best of luck. Dr. Vijay Pal Singh, he says, results and precaution in elderly diabetic and hypertensive heart stent patients. So again, a very tricky question. As we have discussed earlier, a patient who is CAD positive or post-stented patient or post-CABG patient, we evaluate these patients as per protocol. We do check CAG before going for transplant. If the patient is having recurrence of stenosis more than 90%, more than one major vessel, then we either ask the patient to go for a restenting or for a bypass before going for transplant. But if the EF is good, it's preserved, and the patient is having good outcome after dobutamine stress echo, and then we can take this patient for transplant, and then these patients can be taken up for CABG or stenting after 3 months of renal transplant. Next is Dr. Vijay Pal Singh again says risk in elderly and diabetic patient we have discussed. Dr. VK Sharma, he is a surgeon, dynamic surgeon in our team. He say hi. Thanks, Dr. Sharma. Dr. Sudhir Kumar Tomar again saying congratulations, Dr. Shahnawaz. Dr. Deven Sharma, Dr. Vipin Dhama, Dr. Harikesh Wangkar, he says all the best, especially Dr. Sharad Chardar. He's probably a friend of Dr. Sharad. Abhishek, Dr. Abhishek says there, very informative talk. All the best. And these are the questions which we have got. Is there any more question? Definitely will be ready to answer all those. So
there is a question, Dr. Sandeep Garg, on my, and I think it should be answered by you. And it asks that what do you do if the cross match is positive?
Well, if the cross match is positive, that means the patient is a HLA incompatible patient, and in this scenario, we go for a donor-specific antigen. And if the patient is having donor-specific antigen with MFI of more than 3,000, we usually avoid renal transplant, and then we ask the patient for either swab transplant or paired kidney donation. And if he is not willing for all these things, then we can take up even these HLA incompatible patient, and we have done 2 transplant of these type. We start with immunosuppression at least 15 days prior to the transplant. We do a session of plasmapheresis, and then we measure the DSA level. If the DSA is again less than 3,000 MFI, then patient we take for transplant with induction with ATG, that is anti-thymocyte globulin, and with the immunosuppression on the higher side and keeping our finger crossed. That's all we do. But usually, if these patients are HLA incompatible patient, and you should go for paired kidney donation or swab kidney transplant in these patients. Doctor, what is the major thing we should keep in mind before we go for a swab transplant? Surgical point of view, I'm asking both of you. If we are planning a swab transplant, what things you keep in mind before we going for swab transplant?
I think the most important thing in swab transplant is that both the transplants should take place together, or if you don't have facilities in a operation theaters to carry out 4 surgeries at the same time, then I think it should not be disclosed to the patient that which transplant is being done first, and the other donor should not get to know the status of the other surgery, because there can be a technical problem or a medical legal problem that if one donor gives the kidney and one operation is over and the other donor just refuses to undergo the surgery. So they should either be kept so that they don't know whether the other surgery or the donor surgery has taken place, or they should be done, if preferably they should be done at the same time. Both the donor surgery should be done at the same time. Dr. Sharad, you would like to add something?
One more thing I would like to add, that the donor profile should be the same in the both cases, like age, comorbidities and all. It should be the same in the both side, so that no one is in loss or extra benefit having a small good kidney, or somebody's having some elderly patients donor, other one's donor is young. So there is some discrepancy, and then after once the kidney is not as good as the other recipient, then they can create some medical issue. So that thing should be taken into consideration. Otherwise, you have answered it nicely.
Well, there is one more question from Dr. Rana. He says, what is extended donor pool? Well, since we have the deficiency, or we have less of donor available who can give the donation to the patient, we have a word that is known as extended donor pool. In this patient, as far as live donor program is concerned, we take up the patients for donation whom are suboptimal, like the GFR, the optimal GFR should be around 80 ml per 1.373 meters square. But even up to 60, we can take these patients. They have less of graft function after transplant, but at least they have better quality of life after transplant. I mean, it may not be life last long for say about 10 or 15 years, but it may last long for 7 to 8 years. So definitely in patient with GFR, donor with GFR of say 60, 70, we can take up these patients also for donation. Another thing is like patients who are 70 years of age, we have done a donation. Dr. Shaleen and Dr. Sharad must be remembering, we have done a donation of a 68-year-old individual, and everything went fine. Everything went fine. So patient had a baseline creatinine of 1.3, which is again a good creatinine after transplant. So this is a sort of extended donor pool we can employ or we can use in our patients who have a sparsity of donors, because we are now having more and more nuclear families, and nuclear families we have a less number of patients who can donate. Any other question? Well, there's a very important issue which has been raised by Dr. Vinod Kumar Sharma. He says, Dr. Saab, can we take a donor outside the family? So, question to Dr. Shaleen. Dr. Saab, can we take donor outside the family? Well, there's another question from Dr. Karthike. He says, sir, why liver cirrhosis is contraindication for kidney transplant? Well, kidney transplant, liver cirrhosis is contraindication because liver is a very major organ. You are not getting you, Dr. Shaleen. Well, liver cirrhosis is a contraindication for renal transplant because liver is a very major organ, and if the patient is having a significant comorbidity like liver cirrhosis, his life expectancy will not be more than 5 years. So there is no point in transplanting these patients. And beside this, these patients do not do very well, and the drugs which are being given as a part of immunosuppression post-transplant require a good liver so that these drugs can be metabolized. So patients of liver cirrhosis are not to be transplanted. They can enjoy the life by getting both liver and kidney transplant simultaneously. Well, probably this answers your query, Dr. Sandeep, Dr. Karthike. Any other question coming up? If there are no more questions, I thank people. There is a... Yes, yes. Dr. Shaleen, please. Dr. Shaleen.
Hello.
Well, it seems Dr. Shaleen has lost. Dr. Sharad, thanks for being here.
Thank you, sir.
Now I've asked people from Intas, because of Welcome, to give closing remarks if they are there. If they are not there, then definitely I can give the closing remarks. Are you there, Dr.
Sir, I'm Nishant from Intas, sir.
Yeah, please.
Sir,
please.
Thank you very much for giving us an opportunity to assist you in the knowledge sharing platform, wherein in this COVID times, how kidney transplantation is taking place. Such a niche subject on such a common topic. This is such an innovative concept you have driven, sir. We are honored to be part of your this knowledge sharing platform, sir, and look
Thank
forward.
you, Roshan. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Sharad. Thank you, Dr.
Thank you,
Shaleen.
sir.
Bye from our side. Take care.